Pokémon Pokopia is one of the most intriguing releases the Pokémon Company has lined up for Nintendo Switch 2. It's the first Pokémon game exclusive to the new console, co-developed by Koei Tecmo, and it proposes something we haven't seen before in the franchise: a blend of life simulator, block-based building, and the world of pocket monsters. On paper, it is a risky combination, but after digging into all the details, we were really itching to try it. And that's exactly what we did. We had a chance to play the opening hours of Pokémon Pokopia ahead of its launch on March 5th, 2026, including a cooperative multiplayer session. And after spending a good while rebuilding the world, meeting Pokémon, and uncovering the mysteries behind this concept, we already have a pretty clear idea of our first impressions. So, does Pokémon Pokopia manage to bring the franchise's magic into a completely new genre? Right from the start, Pokémon Pokopia makes it pretty clear that this isn't your typical lighthearted spin-off. You play as a Ditto who, for reasons that will gradually be revealed, has taken on the appearance of its trainer and is transported to a world that, at first glance, seems completely abandoned. There's no humans, no civilizations, just ruins, and a calm that makes you wonder what the hell happened here. As soon as we wake up, we meet Professor Tangrowth, an unusual Pokemon with a grayish look and cracked glasses who acts as our guide on this adventure. He's the one that fills us in. So this place was once prosperous, but something happened and changed everything. Now, little by little, Pokemon are starting to return, and our mission as Ditto will be to use the abilities we learned from them to rebuild the world and create habitats where they can settle again. What really hooked us in those opening hours was the constant sense of mystery. With every new Pokemon you help and every structure you restore, you start finding clues about what happened to the humans. It's an approach that's definitely unusual for Pokemon, maybe closer to what we saw in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and it does a surprisingly good job of keeping you glued to the screen. Safe to say, Pokemon Pokopia doesn't rush to reveal everything, and that's kind of part of its charm. Rebuilding the world becomes the perfect excuse to slowly pull on the narrative thread, uncovering fragments of the story while you create a home for the Pokemon that keep arriving. It's a setup that, at least in these opening hours, left us unsure about the pacing and even more eager to keep on exploring. For the first hour and a half, Pokemon Pokopia really holds your hand with a slow, steady pace that fits the concept really well. At the beginning, Ditto can barely do anything. Walk around, interact with basic objects, and that's pretty much it. This is a design choice that, rather than feeling frustrating, actually helps sell the whole devastated world thing we're in and makes us feel as lost as the protagonist is. That initial sense of helplessness is really well done, and it reminded us, in its own way of course, of the opening of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Everything changes, however, once we start meeting other Pokemon. Our Ditto learns to imitate their moves and use them as tools for building and reshaping the environment, and that's where the game starts showing what it's really about. For example, Squirtle's water gun is used to water fields and hydrate dry soil. Bulbasaur's Vine Whip lets you create patches of tall grass where there used to be nothing but wasteland, and Scyther's cut is perfect for clearing piled up wood that blocks your path. In other words, some of the Pokemon you meet actually expand what you can do. From what we've tried, the range of abilities doesn't seem like it's going to be especially huge, but it does look like it'll be enough to do its job. Give you total freedom to shape the environment however you want. This isn't a game that aims to overwhelm you with hundreds of options. It's more one that would rather you master a handful of well-designed tools. Each ability has a clear purpose and fits naturally into the gameplay loop without gimmicks or filler mechanics. Now, the progression system has several layers that unlock little by little. On one hand, we can craft items using materials we gather from the environment, using a standard crafting system. On the other, completing Pokemon help requests rewards us with items at the PC stores, which we can use to decorate or expand our builds. And for bigger structures, like houses or full buildings, we'll need the help of certain Pokemon and we'll have to wait a set amount of time for construction to finish. Now that last detail, along with some waiting mechanics, gives the impression that at some point, Pokemon Pokopia may have been considered as a mobile game. Still, it doesn't feel too out of place with how it's been adapted for Nintendo Switch 2. And besides, the real purpose of Pokemon Pokopia isn't just to push the story forward, but to build a cube-based world and decorate it however you like. It's that creative side that's the part of the experience, gathering resources, putting up structures, designing habitats so Pokemon feel at home, and ultimately shaping a place that used to be nothing but ruins. Your freedom to decide how each area gets rebuilt is absolute, and it's way more addictive than it might look on paper. If we had to draw comparisons, we'd say it feels like a blend of Animal Crossing and Dragon Quest builders, with of course the Pokemon universe as the backdrop. From the former, it inherits that laid-back pace and the satisfaction of watching your little own world come to life, while from the latter, it takes the block-based building and that feeling of putting something together from scratch with RPG-like systems. The result, at least in these first hours, works out pretty well. Needless to say, the vibe is deeply relaxing, with a slow rhythm that encourages you to just take your time. No rush, no pressure, no timers, no enemies lurking around, just you, the Pokemon, and a world waiting to breathe again. So if you're looking for a calm experience within the Pokemon universe, far removed from frantic battles or competitive catching, Pokemon Pokopia looks like it could be exactly what you need. Everyone else, however, might want to wait for the next mainline entry. Now, beyond the single-player mode, we also had the chance to play Pokemon Pokopia's multiplayer alongside 3 other players in a cooperative session. The mode we played let us join one participant's world, with them acting as the host, and then work together to rebuild their island. And the experience was smooth and trouble-free. The most interesting part of playing together is how much it opens up the possibilities. We could find Pokemon originating from other trainers' worlds, add them to our Pokedex, and even talk to them to complete help requests as a group. And cooperative building works out brilliantly. While one person gathers resources, another can put up structures, and a third can explore new areas. Teamwork that actually feels natural. And even though we couldn't test it firsthand, the game also includes the options to create a private island that's saved in the cloud. Now, this feature looks set to be one of the biggest multiplayer hooks, since it lets other players access a shared world and keep building even when you're offline. The host doesn't need to be present. The island stays there, waiting for your friends to chip in. The possibilities this system opens up are huge, and it inevitably brings Minecraft to mind. A persistent, collaborative world that grows with every session, regardless of who's playing at any moment. If the Pokemon Company and Koei Tecmo implement this well, Pokemon Pokopia could become one of those games you keep coming back to just to see what your friends built while you were away. Basically, Pokemon Pokopia's multiplayer doesn't feel like a last-minute add-on, but an integral part of the experience. Of course, playing solo is completely viable and enjoyable, but rebuilding the world with friends makes a ton of sense. We'll have to see how it holds up in the final release, but these first impressions are very promising. After these opening hours with Pokemon Pokopia, it's clear we're looking at one of the most distinctive spin-offs the franchise has ever produced. It's not a battle game, it's not a frantic catching game, and it's not a puzzle title or a MOBA. It's just something entirely different. A relaxed experience where building and exploration rule above anything else. Clearly, the Pokemon Company wanted to try something new, and this new direction looks really promising. The inspirations are obvious. Minecraft, Dragon Quest builders, and Animal Crossing echo through every corner of Pokemon Pokopia. But still, the game carves out its own space thanks to how ever-present Pokemon are in every system. They're not just there for decoration, they're the key to progressing, building, and exploring. Like Ditto can literally transform to swim like a water-type Pokemon, soar through the skies by mimicking Dragonette, and use several different moves that unlock throughout the adventure. Ditto's just the perfect lead for a game like this. A blank canvas that borrows everyone else's abilities and puts them at the player's service. So we can't wait to see what else Pokemon Pokopia has to offer when it arrives on Nintendo Switch 2. But so far, our impressions are very positive. A calm, creative adventure with a strong sense of identity and the kind of comfort game that Pokemon fans can sink into to unwind after a long day. Cause sometimes what you need is to just sit on the couch, pick up your controller, and focus on rebuilding a devastated world surrounded by Pokemon. And that's exactly what this peculiar spin-off is promising.